The starship Eclipse drifted silently through the void, its sleek silver hull reflecting the faint light of a distant sun. Inside, Princess Zynara of the Xalaxian Empire sat alone in her chambers, her iridescent blue skin shimmering faintly under the soft glow of the ship's ambient lighting. Her long, silver hair cascaded down her back, and her violet eyes, usually so full of fire, were dull with resignation. She stared out the viewport at the endless expanse of space, feeling more isolated than ever. Zynara was the youngest daughter of Emperor Zorax, ruler of the most powerful empire in the galaxy. But her birthright meant nothing now. She had been exiled, cast out by her own people for a crime she didn't commit. The Xalaxian court had accused her of treason, claiming she had conspired with the enemy during the war with the Krylos Dominion. The truth was far simpler and far more painful. Zynara had refused to marry the warlord her father had chosen for her, a man whose cruelty was matched only by his ambition. Her defiance had cost her everything. Now she was adrift, a princess without a throne, a pariah among her own kind. The Eclipse was her prison, a vessel carrying her to a remote outpost where she would live out her days in obscurity. No one wanted her. No one cared. But fate, it seemed, had other plans. The Eclipse shuddered violently as an alarm blared through the corridors. Zynara's head snapped up, her senses sharpening. "What's happening?" she demanded, her voice echoing through the empty chamber. The ship's AI responded in its calm, mechanical tone. "Unauthorized vessel approaching. Scans indicate a human freighter. They are hailing us." "Humans?" Zynara frowned. Humans were a relatively new species to the galactic stage, still considered primitive by many. What were they doing this far out in the fringe systems? Before she could decide what to do, the Eclipse lurched again and the lights flickered. "We are being boarded," the AI announced. Zynara's heart raced. She had no weapons, no guards, no way to defend herself. She was utterly alone. The door to her chamber hissed open, and she braced herself for the worst. But what stepped through was not what she expected. A human man stood in the doorway, clad in a patched-up spacesuit and holding a plasma rifle. He was tall, with tousled brown hair and eyes that seemed to gleam with mischief. He looked around the room, his gaze landing on Zynara, and he grinned. "Well, this is a surprise," he said, his voice warm and laced with amusement. "I was expecting a cargo hold full of valuables, not a— he trailed off, clearly unsure how to address her. "Princess," Zynara said coldly, lifting her chin. "I am Princess Zynara of the Xalaxian Empire. And you are trespassing." The man chuckled, lowering his rifle. "Trespassing, huh? Sorry about that. Name's Jace Carter. I'm kind of a freelancer. And you, Princess, look like you could use some help." Zynara narrowed her eyes. "I need no help from a human scavenger." Jace shrugged, unfazed. "Suit yourself. But unless you've got a crew hiding somewhere, you're not going anywhere. Your ship's engines are fried, and my guys are stripping it for parts as we speak." Zynara's stomach sank. She had no way to stop him, no way to escape. She was at his mercy. Jace must have seen the despair in her eyes because his expression softened. "Look, I'm not here to hurt you. I didn't even know you were on board. But if you want to get out of here, I can help. For a price." "A price?" Zynara repeated, her voice dripping with disdain. "What could I possibly offer you?" Jace's grin returned. "Oh, I'm sure we can think of something." Against her better judgment, Zynara agreed to Jace's terms. He promised to repair the Eclipse and take her to a safe port, but in exchange, she would help him with a job he had planned. She didn't trust him, but she had no other options. As they traveled together, Zynara found herself reluctantly intrigued by Jace. He was unlike anyone she had ever met, brash, irreverent, and utterly fearless. He treated her not as a princess, but as an equal, teasing her and challenging her at every turn. At first she found it infuriating, but over time she began to appreciate his honesty, his lack of pretense. Jace, for his part, was equally fascinated by Zynara. He had never met anyone like her, regal, intelligent, and fiercely independent. She was a mystery, and he was determined to unravel her. Their journey took them to the lawless world of Krylos Prime, a planet teeming with smugglers, mercenaries, and outcasts. Jace's job turned out to be a heist, a daring plan to steal a priceless artifact from a heavily fortified vault. Zynara was initially horrified by the idea, but Jace convinced her that it was the only way to secure the funds they needed to repair the eclipse and get her to safety. The heist was a disaster from the start. The vault's security systems were more advanced than Jace had anticipated, and they were quickly discovered. A firefight broke out, and Zynara found herself fighting side by side with Jace, her natural agility and combat training proving invaluable. Together they managed to escape with the artifact, but not without sustaining injuries. As they fled the planet, Zynara realized something had changed. She no longer saw Jace as just a human scavenger. He had risked his life for her, and she had done the same for him. They were a team. Back on the eclipse, Jace tended to Zynara's wounds, his touch gentle and his expression uncharacteristically serious. "You could have died back there," he said quietly. "Why did you do it?" Zynara met his gaze, her violet eyes steady. "Because you would have done the same for me." Jace smiled, a soft, genuine smile that made her heart skip a beat. "Yeah," he admitted. "I would have." In that moment, something unspoken passed between them, a connection that transcended species, status, and circumstance. Zynara realized that for the first time in her life, she felt seen. Not as a princess, not as a pawn, but as herself. Weeks turned into months as they traveled together, their bond growing stronger with each passing day. Zynara learned to let go of her pride, to embrace the freedom she had never known. Jace, in turn, found a sense of purpose he had long been missing. Together, they became a force to be reckoned with, taking on jobs that ranged from daring rescues to high-stakes negotiations. But their idyllic existence couldn't last forever. News of Zynara's whereabouts reached the Xalaxian Empire, and her father sent a fleet to retrieve her. The eclipse was surrounded, outgunned, and outmatched. Zynara faced a choice: return to her old life or stand with Jace and fight for the future they had built together. She chose Jace. In a final, desperate battle, they managed to outmaneuver the Xalaxian fleet, using every trick and tactic they had learned. The eclipse was badly damaged, but they escaped, disappearing into the uncharted reaches of space. Years later, the legend of Princess Zynara and Jace Carter spread across the galaxy. They became symbols of hope and defiance, a reminder that even the most unlikely alliances could change the course of history. Zynara never returned to the Xalaxian Empire. She didn't need to. She had found something far more valuable, a place where she belonged, and a love that transcended the stars. And as she stood on the bridge of the eclipse, her hand in Jace's, she knew she was exactly where she was meant to be.